guys, Subaru WRX STI ownership review. Alright guys, I promise to keep this part of the video short, the whole talking in front of the car. We'd be better off just talking about the car while actually driving it, so we'll get to that shortly. If you haven't seen the last video, my name is Nate, I'm 30 years old, I have a huge car addiction. Here's one of the offenders. You guys know a lot about this car already. It's been out since 2015. They refreshed it in 2018. It's been using the same EJ motor way back since early 2000s. What we have here is EJ25, 310 horsepower, 290 pound-feet of torque, going all the way up to 6,500 RPM. Car weighs about 3,400 pounds. So when you take a look at this engine bay here, it is quite dusty. Honestly, I don't ever get it detailed. But for the most part, it is stock. I think a lot of the memes kind of got to me about these motors blowing up, so that's kind of a huge reason as to why I never tuned it or added any sort of modification. I just don't want to end up spending almost 20 grand for an engine rebuild or an engine replacement, so honestly I just kind of enjoyed it for what it is and left it alone. Yeah, it looks stock, yeah, it looks boring, but honestly it starts every day. I can take it on road trips, I don't have to worry about anything, so it's going to stay stock. I believe when this car first came out, MSRP was about $38,000. In today's market, if you try to look for 2018 up or just any type of STI with low miles, unmodified, you're probably going to be paying around the same price. When I bought mine maybe 2 years ago, 7,000 miles, paid $41,000 at CarMax. This is essentially my daily driver. This is the car I take to work. This is the car that I bring my son to school in. This is where I take my family around if I have to. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure how I got this car. Back when I was obsessed with Need for Speed, I never really was into Subarus. Watched this movie called Baby Driver, and that opening scene with the red WRX is honestly what sold me. A couple years later, I finished school. I needed a car that was practical. Here's where we're at. Overall, how do I think about how this car looks over time? Honestly, I quite like it. It's still very Japanese, it's very angular, kind of looks like an Evo, but at the same time has a more refreshed interior. I know they call this generation the Evo I, and I'm not mad about that. This has been out for, I don't know, the last 8 years. And I know this rear wing back here can be obnoxious for, you know, the average person, but honestly, this car, it's kind of like a if you know, you know type of car. Not really many people, you know, think too much of it. They think it's just a Subaru with a large wing that I threw on aftermarket. So this is the very last generation of the STI. In 2021, which is this model year, they actually canceled it. You know, when they released the VB generation 3 or 4 months later after they released it, they announced that they're killing off the STI, or at least they're gonna hold off until they can make a hybrid or a EV variant of the STI. And then so once I found out about that, it made me really interested in picking up one of these. So here's where we're at. And I know they're very different spectrums of car, but at the time when I was looking, when I was cross shopping, I can either get a brand new, relatively brand new STI for about the same price of an F80 that was, you know, 5 owners, 60,000 miles, maybe an accident. So me personally, I just didn't want to deal with any potential reliability issues. I didn't want to deal with any headache. I kind of wanted to be in something a little bit newer, something that didn't have 60,000+ miles, something that didn't have 5+ owners. So I ended up going with this, and honestly, ever since, I have zero regrets. Okay, so here it is, 2021 Subaru STI. This is the very last STI you can get with an internal combustion engine. Alright guys, and as promised, less talking while outside the car and more so my impressions while actually driving it. So let's go ahead and do just that.
See me? Nope.
More lights. More lights. Don't want you guys to be staring at a black screen the whole time while some stranger is talking, so this is what we're gonna do. When you first get into the car, you realize the seating position is a little bit high. First thing you try to do is lower it, but then you realize that's as far as it goes. But other than that, like I said, when you sit down, you get all of this visibility. When you're taking this car, all these road trips or beautiful sceneries, you get to enjoy it more compared to, when you're cocooned in your typical sports car. And that's something I wish more, manufacturers would focus on. Yeah, performance. Hang on one second. Distracted one more time. Alright. So 2.5 liter boxer 4-cylinder. This is the EJ25 pumping 310 horsepower, 290 pound-feet of torque. Revs all the way up to 6,500 RPM. 310 horsepower, yeah, it's not crazy in sports car figures these days. And honestly, every Tesla that you come across is probably going to beat you off the line. Every Altima driver that you see is for sure going to cut you off. But still, compared to the average car on the road, 300 horsepower in itself is fast enough. And the thing I like most about this car at 300 horsepower is you get to have fun with it and you're not going jail speeds. You really get to use this car's full potential on public roads, which I'm driving on 99% of the time. And when I'm having fun with it, I'm not worried about my car getting impounded or losing my license and having to go to the DMV for driving school telling me how to drive safely, so I don't have to worry about any of that. But it is quick. I'm not gonna say it's crazy fast. Like, it doesn't throw you in the back of your seat, it's more like a shove. But at the end of the day, that's kind of not what you buy this car for. It's more so the handling characteristic, more so the practicality, that symmetrical. Hang on. Yeah, it's more the handling characteristic. It's just the fact that you have hydraulic steering. It doesn't take much effort to really turn it, and you feel everything that your front tires are going over. There's so much feedback with this. Another thing too I learned with having this car is the road noise is quite loud. My two friends sitting in the back seat could not hear the conversation that I was having in the front. But when you have a car like this with sports tuned suspension, 19-inch wheels with very small tire wall, that's something you kind of have to expect. You're not driving around in a Lexus, you're not going to have that type of comfort or, MPH, but at the same time too, when you have this car, when you're turning it, there's very minimal body roll with it. It feels very planted for being, a four-door family sedan. One thing I like with this car too, after living with it, is yeah, everyone shits on the interior for being so old and hard plastic, but honestly, I don't know, it doesn't feel like cheap plastic to me. Like you go into, you know, your economy cars and like the Fords or the Chevys, those ones are like legit hard plastic shells. This one is definitely a little bit more soft touch to it, and you know, the whole layout itself, you know, you have physical knobs, physical buttons. You have a screen that has Apple CarPlay, which is honestly the only thing I really need in an infotainment. I'm happy that my HVAC isn't buried into the infotainment screen. I don't have to worry about this whole infotainment, you know, having a bug 5 years later, and then now I can't even use my AC. When you compare this with the previous gen STIs, like this is a huge upgrade from them. You know, you have these leather seats with Alcantara inserts, you have a nice thick steering wheel, perfect diameter with very slight flat bottom to it. Again, physical knobs, and then just being inside the car too. Like yeah, it's loud, but when you're inside the car, it's so spacious. Like you have your friends in here, they have plenty of room. My brother, he's 6 foot tall, he fits in here perfectly fine, he feels comfortable. And that's another thing I learned with just cars in general nowadays. They keep getting bigger and bigger, but when you get inside the car, it feels more claustrophobic. To me, that doesn't make any sense, but yeah, I know there's all those, you know, safety regulations that they have to maintain. And that's kind of what I like so much about this car in general. It's like old school modern type car. Like they just kept refining the same recipe since early 2000s, and now we have Apple CarPlay. You have a 6-speed manual. Yeah, it feels a little bit rubbery. Yeah, it's like typical Subaru. You put into a gear, you're not sure which gear you're in until you see the number. But just the fact that it's a bulletproof transmission. This motor itself too, I think in 2021, they revised the bottom end to have the same short block as the Type R, I believe. I don't know the exact specifics, I forgot to do my research, but basically with this motor itself, this is more durable, this is more built, so if you did want to tune it or take it to the track, it should last a little bit longer compared to what you see on the memes. To me, it's modern enough, and I think, you know, this will be future-proof for the next 5, maybe 7 years. And I just don't like the direction that most cars are going now with, you know, the large iPad tablets. To me, yeah, this looks very simple, but I feel like this is just going to age a lot better just because it's not relying so much on the screen. Because 5 years later, like the cars that we see now with the large tablets, they're gonna keep upgrading them. It's, you know, it's like an iPhone. The technology just keeps evolving. Versus this more simple layout, more ergonomic, back to basics, I feel like this is going to age a lot better. So where this car really comes to life, I would say during shitty climates. You know, here in Vegas, there is quite a number of monsoon seasons. So when it's pouring, surfacing the oils on the floor, it's very easy to slip. Back then when I was daily driving my 2009 Nissan 370, I was so scared driving that car on the freeway because whenever I would hit a bump, there was a few times where it just wants to do a 360. The thing with this car is when you have conditions like that, it just gives you so much confidence. You can still have all the fun that you normally would in normal temperature, normal conditions. And the thing is too, not many other cars are capable of doing that. You know, living in Vegas, whenever it rains, people suddenly don't know how to drive, so they're going 45 on the freeway. But when you have a car like this that's still capable no matter what climate, and then you can kind of just rip through and pass everybody, I don't know, to me that's where the car really shines. Yeah, it's 310 horsepower, 0 to 60, maybe like mid 4 seconds, but like I said, that's not what this car is about. It's more so like the handling characteristic, more so that Subaru symmetrical all-wheel drive, you know, tons of grip. You have mechanical LSDs in the front and the rear, so yeah, you just never really feel like this car is going to slide out on you. I mean, yeah, if you really push it hard enough, you will oversteer, and then obviously you got to maintain the tires too. That's, you know, a little bit more common sense. But it's just like I said, a different type of fun that you can have with this. You have all this power that you're able to use. You know, you compare it to something like a Hellcat. It has all that power, but you know, you try to go 10/10 with that car, and then next thing you know, you're doing a 360. I don't know, I have too much anxiety for that. And at the same time too, even if you're just going a straight line and you're really pushing it, then you look down, you're going 80 on a 35. I don't know, I'm not comfortable with that type of fun. I have too much anxiety, if I'm being honest. So for me, like, having this car for the last 2 years, this is what I'm comfortable with. And then, as you can probably tell too, it's pretty quiet when you don't have all that road noise going on, when you're just cruising in back roads. With the stock exhaust, you can't really hear that box of rumble. To me, that's probably the only thing that I would eventually want to change on this car. But mind you, when I first bought this car, it had a single exit Tomei titanium exhaust. That thing looked like potato cannon, and it was extremely obnoxious, at least for my liking. I just felt like whenever I was trying to keep up with normal traffic, it was so loud, it was so shouty, it made it seem like I'm trying to race everybody on the road, when honestly I'm just trying to keep up with traffic. That's kind of the benefit of having an OEM exhaust, is, you know, you can have more fun pushing it without attracting so much attention. It doesn't sound like you're trying so hard to be number one, but like at the same time too, you're just enjoying it for yourself. You're not attracting all that attention, and that's why I've still stuck with this exhaust 2 years later. My biggest thing is, this is my daily driver. This is the car that I'm taking on road trips. I don't want to deal with 4 hours of drone. I feel like after 30 minutes of hearing drone on the highway, I get a headache. So I don't know, to me that just kind of stresses me out. I don't know, reliability is kind of the biggest thing for me with sports cars in general. Just the fact that you can turn it on, you don't have any check engine light, you can take it on a road trip, you know it's going to survive, you know it's going to bring you back home safely, you're not going to get stuck on the side of the road. To me, that's what I value most in sports cars. So far, after having this car for 2 years, I know it's only, you know, low 20,000 miles, but I feel like if I just leave it unmodified and keep maintaining it properly, I don't know, I feel like the car will stay healthy. I feel like it's not going to let me down, it's not going to frustrate me, I can enjoy it as it should. I don't have to worry about anything breaking, I don't have to worry about leaks, and most importantly, I don't have to worry about the motor exploding and paying, what, $20,000 for a rebuild or replacement. I don't know, I don't want to worry about that. So yeah, I've had this car for about 2 years now. It's served me really well. Like I said, it's been 100% reliable. I get to drive my friends around in it. I get to enjoy this whole Japanese rally car experience, even though I never rally. But that's kind of the thing, is just, you don't have many cars like that exist. Like, you have the Civic Type R. It's front wheel drive though, not really, you know, all-weather type of car. The clearance isn't as good either. Then, you know, you have other ones like, you know, Golf R, Elantra, and also front wheel drive. I think the closest comparison to this one would be the GR Corolla. But that's kind of the whole thing that I was talking about earlier, is, you know, I haven't sat in one before, but based on what I'm seeing on the videos, is as soon as you get into the car, it just feels really cramped. The interior doesn't feel as special. I don't even know if it has red seat belts. And at the end of the day too, I never really lusted after having a souped up Corolla. But at the same time too, it's like, Subaru, they don't make the STI anymore. To me, this is... this is going to be like a future classic. 2021 is when they canceled it. That's what this year is. And honestly, yeah, it hasn't changed much. It's still making the same numbers. The interior is still basic, but you have to think of it as in they've been using the same recipe for the last 20 years, and then over time they just kept refining it, making it more durable, making it a little bit more modern. So this car is basically like just an old school modern sports car, and you don't get much of that nowadays. And then another thing that we can talk about, this horn is a little bit dinky. Another thing too with this car, doesn't make any sense to me. It's a 4-cylinder turbo. I think for me, I've been averaging about like 19 to 21 combined. 18 if I'm 18 miles per gallon if I'm driving it like an something like that, which isn't terrible. It's just not that good. But yeah, the biggest thing for me with this car is just the amount of practicality that you have with this, and it's still, you know, a sports sedan at the end of the day. It's still something that you could take to the track. You could rally it on dirt road or gravel roads, which I probably never would do. But all at the same time, you can just drive your family around in and let them have the same fun too. And here's something that I don't really like about the motor. It's not that I don't like the motor, at least the sound of it. I think it's just more so the OEM exhaust. But with the OEM exhaust, when you're really going for it, the engine sounds kind of moany. I don't know. You're not really getting that boxer rumble that you typically hear, but that's just more so upgrading the exhaust. To me, just the usability of this car, just the fact that I can drive this in any type of climate, whether it's snowing, even though it never snows here in Vegas, but like pouring rain, I don't have to worry about spinning out, just driving normally on the freeway. I don't know, that's what makes me really happy about this car. Yeah, it's only having like 310 horsepower, but kind of like I said, it's just the fact that you can use the car to its potential more on these public roads without worrying about losing your license. Yeah, another thing I forgot to mention too about this car is these brakes are really good. 3,400 pound car, it stops like a Mini Cooper if I'm being honest. These Vegas drivers do not know how to drive in their lane. So yeah, had this car for 2 years now. What are my plans? Obviously I'm going to keep it stock, maybe change out the exhaust, I don't know, I keep going back and forth. But for the most part, I just want to keep it healthy, I want to keep it alive. Like I said, this is my daily driver, this is what I take to work, this is why I take my son to school in, this is why I drive the family around. I just want to keep it reliable, I want to keep it healthy, I want to make sure every time it starts there's no check engine lights. I don't want to have to worry about a $20,000 engine rebuild or replacement. And honestly, I just want this car to drive as it did when it came out of the showroom. Do I ever plan to sell this car or upgrade it in the future? I don't know, as of right now I don't really see that. I'm really big into these old school modern type cars, you know, hydraulic steering, 6-speed manual, mechanical LSDs in the front and the rear, symmetrical all-wheel drive, just the right amount of power, and it's Japanese. I don't see myself changing it anytime soon. Like I said, I just want to keep this part of the fleet as long as I can. I want this to be the sports sedan. I have the Roadster, I have the sports coupe. This one, like I said, will serve all purposes. It's gonna be like the all-weather family sports car, and that's what I'm gonna, you know, do my best to keep it alive and healthy. But that basically sums it for this car. Like I said, 2 years, I'm still really happy with this car. I don't see myself getting out of that. I don't see myself changing anything. Hope you guys have a good night. Hope you liked the video and hope you learned something. Have a good night. Bye.